Did you know that some of the most admired countries in Europe, the very places that millions dream of visiting, are on the brink of financial ruin? Beneath the charm of historic cities and picturesque landscapes, a quiet crisis is growing. Families are struggling to afford daily expenses, businesses are shutting down, and governments are buried under debt they can barely manage. In 2025, these problems are no longer whispers, but loud warnings. Greece, a land known for its ancient ruins and sun-soaked islands, continues to battle a debt crisis that refuses to fade. Even after a decade of harsh austerity and international bailouts, its debt-to-GDP ratio sits above 180%, one of the highest on Earth. According to Springer, youth employment is stuck at over 30%. This brain drain has left Greece with an aging workforce and a pension system under immense pressure. The economy's lifeline, tourism, is now under threat as travelers choose cheaper destinations like Turkey and Croatia. Meanwhile, red tape and corruption continue to choke businesses, pushing foreign investors away. Without major reforms, Greece's economy risks falling back into a crisis that could rattle the entire Eurozone. Italy, with its cobbled streets and world-renowned art, faces an economic struggle as severe as its beauty is breathtaking. While tourists flock to marvel at the Colosseum, the country is weighed down by a debt-to-GDP ratio exceeding 145%. Small businesses, the heart of Italy's economy, face mounting challenges as banks buckle under unpaid loans, leaving many owners unable to secure credit. Young Italians, frustrated by limited opportunities and high unemployment rates hovering around 20%, are leaving in droves, draining the country of talent. Those who remain watch as the pension system strains under an aging population, while politicians argue but rarely act. Even tourism, which once propped up the economy, struggles to recover as inflation raises travel costs. Italy's future looks increasingly uncertain, and without bold action, this economic powerhouse risks slipping further into decline. Portugal, with its sunlit terraces and gentle ocean breezes, hides economic troubles that are growing harder to ignore. Debt still clings to the nation like a shadow, with its ratio standing at over 120% of GDP. Fortune revealed the streets of Lisbon, once bustling with locals, now host an influx of foreign investors who have driven property prices sky high. For many Portuguese families, homeownership has become a distant dream. Young professionals unable to find stable work are leaving the country, weakening the workforce and placing more pressure on public services. Hospitals face staff shortages, while schools struggle with overcrowded classrooms and outdated resources. Tourism, once Portugal's saving grace, now suffers as rising costs and environmental issues keep visitors away. Without significant changes, Portugal risks losing not only its economic stability, but also the communities that give the nation its soul. Latvia, a small Baltic nation known for its dense forests and charming old towns, faces a crisis that is slowly draining the life out of its economy. Growth has slowed to just 1.2%, while inflation stretches household budgets to their limits. The problem runs deeper than rising prices. As reported by Politico, young Latvians seeking better wages and opportunities are leaving the country in alarming numbers, heading west to countries like Ireland and Germany. This loss of skilled workers is leaving Latvia with fewer taxpayers and an aging population that depends heavily on social services. Energy costs make matters worse, as the nation relies on imports, making every winter a financial strain for families. Rural hospitals lack doctors, schools struggle to stay open, and investors hesitate due to government inefficiencies. If Latvia cannot find a way to hold on to its young people, its future may be one of long-term decline. Bulgaria, with its rolling hills and historic monasteries, remains one of Europe's poorest countries, and its economic challenges in 2025 only deepen that reality. Growth has slowed to 1.5%, and inflation bites into everyday living costs. Beneath the surface, corruption festers, pushing investors away and limiting growth. For young Bulgarians, the choice is often clear. They leave. Western Europe offers better wages and stability, creating a labor gap at home. This exodus weakens the economy and stretches the already fragile pension system. Allianz recorded that public hospitals are underfunded, and those in rural areas often go without proper equipment or staff. Energy costs, driven by reliance on coal and gas imports, add further pressure. Without serious reforms and investment in its future, Bulgaria risks remaining stuck at the bottom of Europe's economic ladder. If you've made it this far, you can see that Europe's economic struggles run deeper than many realize. These stories are more than numbers. They're about families fighting to survive and young people searching for hope. If you're finding this video informative, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe. Your support helps us uncover and share these critical stories from around the world. Now, let's continue, because the next country might surprise you even more. Croatia. Croatia, a country admired for its crystal-clear Adriatic waters and ancient coastal towns, carries an economic burden that is often overshadowed by its beauty. While Dubrovnik's old walls attract tourists from across the globe, the nation's financial situation is becoming more fragile. GDP growth has slowed to a worrying 1.8%, and inflation is steadily driving up the price of basic goods. Tourism, which accounts for nearly 20% of the country's economy, is showing cracks as the number of visitors fluctuates. Young Croatians are finding fewer opportunities, with youth unemployment over 20%, pushing many to seek work in countries like Germany and Austria. According to GAN Integrity, corruption and government inefficiency make starting a business a frustrating process, leaving both locals and foreign investors hesitant. Without action, Croatia risks seeing its natural beauty overshadowed by economic stagnation. Romania. Romania, often seen as one of Eastern Europe's rising stars in past years, is now struggling to hold onto that status. While the Carpathian Mountains and medieval castles paint a picture of timeless charm, the country's economy is slowing down. Data from World Bank Group shows that the GDP growth has dropped to 2.1%, while inflation continues to erode people's savings, making it harder for families to afford everyday goods. Corruption remains a deep-rooted issue, with businesses and investors frequently facing bureaucratic delays and questionable practices. Many young Romanians, discouraged by low wages and poor working conditions, are leaving in large numbers, heading to wealthier European countries. This labor drain is leaving hospitals short of nurses and construction sites without skilled workers. Public services, particularly healthcare, are struggling under the weight of underfunding, forcing citizens to either rely on private care or travel abroad for treatment. Without significant reform, Romania's momentum could fade, leaving it trapped in economic uncertainty. Hungary. Hungary, with its grand architecture and the Danube River splitting Budapest in two, presents a picture of strength. But beyond the surface, Focus Economics highlighted the crack in the economy is growing wider. Debt is climbing, with a debt-to-GDP ratio at 76%, while inflation continues to push up the cost of living, making groceries and utilities harder for families to afford. The country's reliance on European Union funds has become a weak spot, as political disputes over rule of law issues have strained relationships with Brussels, delaying crucial financial support. At the same time, Hungary's industries, especially manufacturing and agriculture, are struggling to modernize, slowing down growth. Corruption remains a concern, with government funds often mismanaged, reducing public trust. Healthcare and education sectors suffer from underfunding, leaving hospitals understaffed and schools relying on outdated resources. Albania. Albania, known for its rugged mountains and pristine coastline along the Ionian Sea, faces challenges that its natural beauty cannot mask. Growth has slowed to just 1.4%, and inflation has pushed many families into poverty, especially in rural areas. As recorded by Wikipedia, corruption is widespread, and Albania is frequently ranked as one of Europe's most corrupt nations, discouraging foreign investment and slowing critical development projects. Emigration is one of the biggest blows to the nation's future. Thousands of skilled workers leave each year for better wages in Germany and Italy, creating a gap in essential sectors like healthcare and education. In hospitals, patients wait long hours for care, while schools struggle with staff shortages. Infrastructure is another concern. Roads are often poorly maintained, and utilities are unreliable, making it harder for businesses to grow. Without tackling corruption and investing in its people, Albania risks becoming further isolated from Europe's progress. Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia and Herzegovina, a country shaped by both stunning landscapes and a painful past, now faces an economic future that looks increasingly unstable. GDP growth stands at just 1.2%, while unemployment remains high, especially among young people, with over 30% struggling to find jobs. In line with Stability Journal, political instability is a constant shadow, as ethnic divisions rooted in the country's post-war structure create government gridlock, preventing much-needed reforms. Corruption has also corroded public trust, with state resources often mismanaged or siphoned into private pockets. As young professionals lose hope, many choose to leave, further shrinking the workforce and placing pressures on social services like pensions and healthcare. Hospitals are underfunded, and rural regions often lack access to proper medical care. Infrastructure remains outdated, with roads and utilities in desperate need of improvement. Without unity and a clear economic strategy, Bosnia risks sinking deeper into poverty and social unrest. Across Europe, these 10 countries reveal a side of the continent that many tourists never see. Beneath the beauty of ancient ruins, sunlit coastlines, and lively cities lies an economic struggle that is forcing families to make impossible choices. From the streets of Athens to the hills of Albania, rising debt, failing industries, and waves of emigration are leaving gaps that governments seem unable to fill. People are moving away from their homes not because they want to, but because they have no other choice. If you found this journey through Europe's economic struggles revealing, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out our next video on the 10 most beautiful cities in California.